And now Richard starts talking.
I do. I start talking. Welcome to the show. I'm Richard Bliss, the co-host with my co-host. Aldo. And we have a special guest today, Teal, who's with us, and we're going to talk about that. But this episode is called
Finding the Game.
Finding the Game. But before we do, let's have a short opportunity to talk about our corporate sponsors.
The corporate that we put out. Teal, this is the first time for the show. We always pop the games out that are the most recently released through impressions. We try not the show to be just about like talking about and selling people games, but
we would appreciate if you bought
But
them.
we do like people to recognize them. So we pop out the latest releases, and Rise to Power is a city building card game from Ape Games, the guys who do the Order of the Stick and the recently released drafting game RAR. The next batch is a new role-playing game series from the folks at Modifius who do Octun Cthulhu. That's their Mutant Zero post-apocalyptic. Fleets is from one of our Swedish companies, Fricks Games. They've got Fleets, which is their giant sci-fi combat game. Exploration.
I'm never supposed to cover up all of them.
I don't. So, and then I Spy from newcomer Lost Boy Productions. World War I spy game. And then how ironic that the last game here, Shadow Throne, I'm going to let Teal say what it is and what his company name is, because that is his game.
All right, yeah. Shadow Throne is my game. That's Nothing Sacred Games. It is a card drafting game of Machiavellian intrigue.
Excuse me.
So,
yeah. No, I'm good right now.
Right.
We're live. We just keep going. If I get your dogs were barking that one time too, and we're like, whatever, don't stop. So Teal lives locally, so he comes to our game night as well, and he's here early beforehand when we usually start.
Water for the master. There you go.
For the map, please. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So basically, I just had. I'm not name dropping. Oh wait. Let's talk about Are we talking about what's going on in the industry right now?
We can, or you can name drop. Why don't you go ahead and name drop?
No, we talk about what's going on in the industry right now. Do you have any knowledge about what's going on in the industry right now?
Not really.
Well, the Gamma Trade Show we talked about in the last video, which is in 2 weeks in Vegas.
So yes, and that kind of marks the beginning of con season. The Gamma Trade Show kind of is what starts it going.
The big like national type. Cons.
The Origins, the Gen Cons, those are all coming in the summer, but this is kind of just the beginning of the season.
Oh, PAX East is this weekend.
PAX East is this weekend. I have been to PAX East.
In all the snow in Boston.
Yeah, crazy. It's originally kind of designed as an electronics show, but the board gaming side of that has grown quite big. Yeah. For PAX East as well. PAX Prime.
Yeah, definitely. PAX, what is it, South? Texas.
There's all kinds of them.
So we've got a lot of those large conventions, and of course, in the last video we talked about the conventions connected to the Gamma Trade Show and saying that you should always go to conventions and all that other stuff. But we were talking about why it's called Finding the Game.
Why is it called Finding the Game?
And I had the opportunity before I came down here. I had lunch with one of the two owners of GTS Distribution.
Is this where you're name dropping now?
Lloyd. I had lunch with Lloyd. For those who know him, he's one of the owners of GTS Distribution. They have a San Jose location, and we set up to have lunch, and we chit chat about the industry, and it's great to have somebody local. There's so few local game related people in the Bay Area. But he got me thinking. We were talking about their Passport Studios in Tokaido and the numbers that they were doing. Of course, I'm not going to reveal those, but I'm like, wow, in comparison to most of these small press gaming companies or new game companies, or Teal's on his second game. He did Corporate America, sorry, I blanked on that one, but we sold out of it. And so listen,
that was name dropping.
That was name dropping. Yeah. So anyway, that was one of the things. Was like Finding the Game. Lloyd said, he goes, gosh, how do people are just going to Fantasy Flight and Asmodee and more Ticket to Ride and more Settlers of Catan, and it's a Settlers of Catan expansion, I'm just going to buy it. And it really, we felt that how do you find these new games?
And the reason we're bringing this up is because, as you were part of this conversation, is the sheer glut of games that are on the market today.
Yeah.
Right? Now, people have the doomsayers, the Tom Vassals, not that I'm going to drop any names, but they're saying that for years now, they've been saying it's going to be the death of quality games because we're going to have this market flooded with all this crap.
Oh, well, I disagree with that.
I know. I disagree with it too. And Tom might not even have said it, but I just want to drop his name. But your game is on the market now, right? So Shadow Thrones, I've played it. I played it, when did we play it? Last year?
Yep.
Kubla Khan. So you're getting ready to take that game to market, because that was one of the things we talked about, is that how do you find a new game? You go out on Kickstarter. Did you kickstart it?
I did Kickstarter in June. Yep.
June. So it's been
a while. It's been like 8 months or so.
Right. And so how many
It just streeted today.
Yeah. How many
Street
backers?
days today.
Like 500 or so.
500 backers.
Yeah.
And so the question now is that, okay, how have you gone about making sure that that game gets recognized?
People find it. How are
they finding it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that a lot of what I do is a little bit guerrilla, I guess. So
Sure.
Reviews. So Tom Vassell loved the game. He put out a great review for it.
Way to go, Tom. I'll take back
thank you.
everything I
So
said.
dropping Tom's name again. Quit saying Tom. Nobody can say Tom the rest of the
Hey,
episode.
no more Tom.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, I did do other things, so that's okay.
No.
You know, anytime I can bring it to a con or anything, just word of mouth, showing people the game, that seems to work really well. Of course, all those helping me out, getting it to game stores and everything, getting it out there.
Nice name drop.
Yeah.
Who? Aldo who?
So basically, any way I can, but a lot of it is organic, right? It's slow to build up.
So is there anything that you're doing online?
Oh yeah, a lot I'm doing online. So I mentioned the reviews.
Right.
I'm also trying to be as active as possible on Board Game Geek.
What does that mean, be active as possible on Board Game Geek? In what way? Are you like pumping your game out there saying, hey, check my game out, check my game out?
I try not to do that. That
Okay.
comes across as a little spammy, and the Board Game Geek community tends to not appreciate that very much.
Okay.
But what I do is I keep an eye on it. So every day I check to make sure that I'm not missing any messages that people are asking about it, any questions, anything like that. So
This is on the forums on Board Game Geek.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, there's a page for the game up there, and I keep track of that, keep track of the forums. And another good way is putting it on Geek lists. So one of the features that Board Game Geek has is people can just make lists about whatever they want, basically.
Yeah.
And so if you just put your game on there, often, you know, don't just put it on every single list you find, put it when it's relevant, right? And that just makes people who are interested in that type of game aware of it.
So for example, what lists is your game relevant to?
Any games about drafting. Any games about the theme. So like sort of Game of Thrones style,
Whether it's
intrigue,
medieval, whatever you want to. Yeah, there's word categories that you can tag. It's like keywords.
Sure, but my question is that some people who are going to go out there are just going to say, "Oh, I just put it on everything," and not stop and thought, "No, you actually can do damage by putting it on the ones that are not applicable." Right?
Yeah, you're going to ruin your reputation because you're going to seem like you're just spamming, right?
You're just trying to grasp for
you aren't going
every.
to seem like you're going to.
Yeah, you are spamming.
You are spamming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you have a longer list of things, but I want to just. I don't want to say burst your bubble, but I want to poke holes in what you're doing. And
Okay.
I'm going to pick on you right now.
Sure, that's what I'm here for.
Because what you've just said is what I hear from pretty much every client.
Yeah.
I'm going to Board Game Geek, maybe do some advertising, whatever it is. And I believe or I feel that it's just not enough. And it's not enough because you can't personally do it.
No, it's true.
So one thing I was talking to Lloyd about with GTS Distribution with his Passport Game Studios is he has, of course, a sales force in 9 warehouse locations calling stores to sell them Magic and everything else. Well, how easy is it for him to say to his sales force, hey, today we're concentrating on selling more Takedo, which is probably their biggest title.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's just mind blowing. He could have dozens of salespeople just to hundreds of stores in one day go ka-clunk Takedo.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Let me poke
And
at
Fantasy
that one.
Flight-
I'm going to poke at that one because just because they're on the phone selling at the stores, does that mean it's actually going to sell in the stores?
Well,
Because I mean, I've walked into a game store. It looks like my bookshelf, right? It's just game after game after game after game. And am I really going to be able to find that game just because some salesperson convinced some store owner to stick it on the shelf?
Well, I got to tell you, that's half the battle. That's half of Teal's problem. I can get him into some stores, but half of Teal, generic Teal, small press indie game publisher, half their problem is even getting a store to try one copy. That is a huge problem. And GTS, for example, I'm just using an example. Fantasy Flight has a big staff, of course, Asmodee. They have that ability to break through that problem very easily because somebody will say, "Oh, it's a new Asmodee game. I'll try one."
And that brings up a valid point. And this is something
branding.
Well, it's the snowball effect that you're talking about.
Yeah, snowball, tipping
right?
point. Yeah.
Company hits a home run, a Ticket to Ride, right? A Dominion,
pandemic. Yeah.
They hit a home run, and then there's the snowball effect or the ripple effect or the halo effect, whatever you want to say, that even mediocre games get pulled in and drafted in behind that.
Correct.
Well, if you're an independent designer, What are the chances that you've just designed the next Pandemic or the next Dominion?
Well, you've only achieved that if it gets to those sales numbers, because
so it's kind of a
who cares about the gameplay,
right?
I mean, seriously. I mean, I know you're laughing at me. This is what I'm saying. I'm having fun with you here because it's a hard conversation for me to have with clients about, because you're the designer and you're just like, well, the gameplay's awesome. Well, it's like, well, you're on a game shelf. How are people going to know your gameplay?
No, it's true.
It's like
it's
like
true.
I was telling Richard about the wine industry. You walk into your Bevmo and there's just so much wine. Well, how do you choose which wine you want? Well, you want to try that wine. Usually you go say, oh, I had this at a friend's house. I'm going to go to Bevmo and buy it right now. So it's like somebody saying, oh, I read a review on Tom Vassell. Oh, I said his name. I'm going to go to the store and get Shadow Throw. So it's the same situation. And the wine market is flooded. Game market's flooded right now. It's so hard to find what you want, to find your game.
Well, so that brings up a valid point, and that is if you're an independent game designer, and I've been talking a little bit about this lately as well, as you have, Aldo, is the opportunity, the Wild West and the day of simply throwing out on Kickstarter and being discovered are really
over.
They're over. And, well, what about Exploding Kittens? Well, yeah, what about Exploding Kittens? They had how many millions of readers?
Yeah, I don't think that was discovered.
Yeah. Good, valid point. But
outlier.
But people aren't paying attention to the fact. They're like, well, it's their first game.
Yeah, they don't understand the history.
They don't understand the crowd that was tied to that particular product. And so Aldo's point is valid that you have to use that snowball effect. So one of the things I've been recommending is that going it alone isn't necessarily a good idea anymore because you are now just one of 1,000.
Yeah, there's a lot of people going it alone.
There's a lot of people
because Kickstarter has made it easy to do so, which is great. And
they've made it easy to make wine. They haven't made it easy to sell wine.
No, to make wine, you are correct. Wine games, yes, they've made it much easier. And I contest that the quality of games, the bar has been definitely raised, and I think more games the quality of games has definitely gotten better because of Kickstarter, because you're able to do all the components that you want as a designer. Because if you were funding the game yourself, you might have spent 10,000 instead of 12,000, because the extra 2,000 would have been that 0.5 gram card upgrade that you're like, oh, well, I did it on Kickstarter.
Well, the play testing might have been different because you might have been more in a hurry, and there's all kinds of things. That's the money coming in is making it so much easier to attract other people who are willing to.
I got to tell you, games are beautiful now. I love opening games now, and I know Kickstarter. When I open a Kickstarter game, I'm like, oh look, full color rule book. If it was your own money, you wouldn't be doing a full color rule book. But I think that has changed a lot. But again, the downside is the flood right now, and that's the challenge for people like you.
So one of the recommendations is to go either band together and find a group that are willing to form a pseudo co-op, or to find a way to convince. There's a few publishers out there. Now, we're not talking about the Asmodees and the Days of Wonder. We're talking about these established brands. One that I really like is Chris Kirkman over at Dice Hate Me Games.
Oh, okay.
Right? They've been on Kickstarter since almost the beginning. They're looking for games, right? Other publishers are always looking for games. And I would think that even if your game has been sold, now take that next game and go to a publisher and say, okay, here's what I've successfully done. I have another one that I'd like to do, because you've got a couple of good games now.
Corporate America's out of print right now. And Teal's just like, well, how do I can I justify a new print run? We haven't talked numbers, and I don't reveal numbers, but it's just too long for that print run.
Right.
So could he go to a publisher and sell Corporate America and say, hey, look, are you interested? I've had a lot of clients do that. I tell you, my most famous client that happened to was Sushi Go with Game Right.
Yep.
We pumped Sushi Go out there. I was just like, I said it again. I'm like, I'm losing Sushi Go. We keep selling. I want to sell more. But he got published by Game Right. And again, that just like put salt on the wound. I'm like, Game Right getting the game was like, now Sushi Go's everywhere. I went to a random place up in Tahoe. And it was just one of those toy stores that really aren't game stores. And there's Sushi Go in the middle of the Monopolies and the Unos and all this. I'm like, you've got to be kidding.
Yes. And I think Battle Cattle was right behind it. Yes.
Battle Cattle. Oh my God.
Go check that out on Board Game Geek. We're out of time.
Well, yeah. Oh, Richard keeps track of time too. And he always cuts us off when we've gone beyond our 20 minutes.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Usually I cut us off before we go on 20 minutes, and then Aldo keeps talking for several more minutes.
Blah,
And it takes
blah,
us beyond.
blah, blah,
But
blah.
I think this has been useful for people to realize we haven't given you a whole lot of good advice, but what we have pointed
Well,
out is for you to start thinking about the
Exactly.
challenges that you're going to face, and that there are creative ways, and some ways haven't even been discovered yet. I think the sheer volume of Kickstarter is going to make some creative people come out and discover new ways of finding the game, helping people find the game.
How much time do I have to mention something else?
90 seconds.
90 seconds. So you were saying new ways. I'm going to do a plug for something that's not even related to me. Is that old friend of mine, Darren Watts from Hero Games, is doing something now called the Envoy program. And it's basically a national demo team program where he's doing checks and balances with a partner. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but I know Darren well. And
Really
companies like Teal can go to them and pay them to play his game at dozens of conventions across the United States, and then dozens of retailers. I mean, it's a giant program. So anyway, look that up. I've had several clients do it. I don't know anything more or how effective it is
And
right
what was
now.
it called?
It's called the Envoy program.
The Envoy program.
ENVOY.
It's not like that's generic.
Well,
title that you're not going to find on the internet.
there's something more than now
right.
I'm going to get in trouble if Darren watches this. Anyway, there is my plug.
All right. So we appreciate Teal. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Woohoo,
I apologize
game
that
time now.
Aldo didn't let you talk, but we'll have you back next time, and we'll let you talk.
Sounds good.
You've been watching Finding the Game. I'm Richard Bliss,
Aldo Giazzi.
Teal Bristow.
and we have certainly enjoyed your presence with us as we have talked about Finding the Game. Catch you next time.
Okay, now go run around and push the button.
Push the button. Where do I push it? I don't have my glasses. Where is it? Okay.